The massive space station called Harmony's Gate floated in the darkness like a metal city. Its silver surface caught the light from the distant star, making it shine against the black of space. Ships from 12 different worlds moved around, it like busy insects. Each ship looked different because each race that built them was different. Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood at the window of her small human ship and watched the station grow larger. She was a tall woman with gray hair pulled back in a neat style. Her dark eyes studied everything carefully. Behind her, 4 other humans prepared for what they all knew would be a difficult meeting. "They really think they own the galaxy," said Captain James Torres. He was Elena's military advisor, a man who had fought in the border wars that brought them here. His uniform was simple and clean, unlike the fancy clothes worn by other races. Elena nodded, but said nothing. She had read all the reports about the Galactic Council, 12 races that had ruled space for thousands of years. They saw themselves as the wise parents of younger species. They decided who could have what planets, who could trade with whom, and who deserved to exist. Humans had been in space for only 200 years. The Council saw them as children who needed to be taught how to behave. Elena knew better. Humans had learned much in those 200 years, but they had kept their lessons secret. Their ship docked with the station. The airlocks opened with a soft hiss. Elena and her team walked through corridors that were built to impress visitors. The walls were covered with pictures of the Council's victories and the planets they controlled. Everything was designed to make newcomers feel small and unimportant. The meeting hall was enormous. A round table sat in the center with 13 chairs around it. 12 were filled with representatives from the Council races. One empty chair waited for Elena. The message was clear. Humans were outnumbered and alone. Speaker Kethvar rose from his seat. He was a Zephyrian, tall and thin with blue skin that seemed to glow in the light. His people had been part of the Council for 3,000 years. He spoke in a voice that sounded like he was talking to a child. "Welcome, humans," he said. "We are pleased that you have come to listen to our wisdom." Elena sat in the empty chair. Her team stood behind her, quiet and watching. She pulled out a small device and placed it on the table. It would record everything that was said. "We are here to discuss the recent troubles in the Outer Rim," Kethvar continued. "Your species has been acting without thinking. You have claimed planets that do not belong to you. You have built ships without asking permission. This must stop." Around the table, other council members nodded. A hegemony representative with 4 arms crossed them all at once. A Marlaxian with scales that changed color showed agreement by turning bright green. They all looked at Elena like teachers looking at a student who had misbehaved. "The Council has decided to help you," said the Nexari delegate. Her voice came through a translator because her people communicated with sounds humans could not hear. "We will teach you how to be a proper part of galactic society." Elena listened without speaking. She let them talk while she watched and learned. The Zephyrians controlled trade routes. The Marlaxians had the biggest fleets. The Nexari had technology that could destroy planets. Each race had something that made them powerful. But Elena also saw weaknesses. The Zephyrians had grown lazy from centuries of easy profit. The Marlaxians were proud but predictable. The Nexari trusted their technology too much. The humans had been studying all of them for years. "These are our terms," Kethvar said, sliding a datapad across the table. "You will return all planets you have claimed in the past 10 years. You will reduce your military to ships needed only for local defense. You will accept Council observers on all your major worlds. In return, we will allow you to continue existing under our protection." Elena picked up the datapad and read it carefully. The terms were worse than she had expected. They wanted to turn humanity into a slave race that could only do what the Council allowed. "You are being very generous," said another council member. This one was from a race called the Corvini. They looked like giant insects with many eyes. "Most young species would be grateful for such an offer." "Indeed," Kethvar agreed. "We could simply take what we want by force. Your primitive weapons would not stop us, but we choose to be merciful." The other council members laughed. It was not a friendly sound. They truly believed that humans were helpless without their protection. They saw humanity as a small, scared species that would do anything to avoid war. Elena finished reading the datapad. She placed it back on the table and folded her hands. Her face showed no emotion, but her team could see the anger in her eyes. "You want us to give up our freedom," Elena said. Her voice was calm and steady. "You want us to become your servants." "We want you to learn your place," Kethvar replied. The galaxy is a dangerous place for species that do not understand how things work. We have maintained peace for thousands of years by making sure everyone follows the rules. Whose rules? Elena asked. Our rules, said the hegemony representative. We are older and wiser. We have seen young species destroy themselves with their foolish pride. We are trying to save you from that fate. Elena looked around the table at each council member. They all stared back with expressions that mixed pity and annoyance. They really believed they were doing humanity a favor. How long do we have to consider your offer? Elena asked. 3 days, Kethvar said. That should be enough time for you to understand that you have no choice. Elena stood up. Her team moved with her like a well-trained unit. We will discuss your proposal, she said. Thank you for your time. As the humans left the meeting hall, the council members talked among themselves. They were confident that Elena would return in 3 days to accept their terms. What choice did humanity have? They were alone against 12 powerful races. But Elena was not worried as she walked back to her ship. She had seen exactly what she needed to see. The council was arrogant and overconfident. They had not fought a real war in centuries. Their strength was built on reputation and fear, not actual power. That night, Elena sent a coded message to Earth. It was short and simple. They are exactly as weak as we thought. Begin the preparations. The message traveled through space at faster than light speed, reaching human space in hours. Military commanders received their orders. Scientists activated secret projects. Diplomats contacted independent worlds that the council had ignored or mistreated. Elena spent the next 2 days listening to more council speeches about human weakness and council strength. She nodded politely and asked questions that made the council members feel smart. All the while, she was studying their body language, learning their personalities, and identifying their fears. The council had made a terrible mistake. They thought they knew humanity based on what they had seen in public. They believed humans were violent and simple because they had won battles through direct action. They never realized that humans could be subtle and patient when it served their purposes. On the 3rd day, Elena would give the council her answer. But first, she would make sure that everything was ready for what would happen next. The galaxy was about to learn what humans could really do when they stopped pretending to be weak. The 3rd day arrived with no change in the council's attitude. If anything, they seemed more confident than before. Speaker Kethvar had spent the morning talking to other delegates about how they would divide up human territory once humanity surrendered. Elena walked into the meeting hall at exactly the appointed time. Her team followed behind her, their faces showing no emotion. The council members were already seated, looking pleased with themselves. Ambassador Vasquez, Kethvar said with a smile that showed his sharp teeth. We trust you have had time to understand the wisdom of our offer. We have discussed it thoroughly, Elena replied, taking her seat. She placed her hands flat on the table and looked directly at each council member. The Terran Federation has reached a decision. Around the table, the aliens leaned forward slightly. They expected to hear the words of surrender they had been waiting for. Some of them had already started planning which human worlds they wanted to claim. Before I give you our answer, Elena said, I want to make sure I understand your position correctly. You want humanity to give up our independence. You want us to accept your authority over our lives. You want us to become another species that exists only because you allow it. That is correct, said the Nexari delegate. It is for your own good. Young species often make mistakes that destroy them. We are offering you guidance. And if we refuse? Elena asked. The hegemony representative made a sound that might have been laughter. Then you will face the combined might of 12 civilizations. Your small fleet will be destroyed. Your worlds will be occupied. Your people will learn to obey whether they want to or not. Elena nodded slowly. I see. So our choice is to surrender, now or be conquered later. Exactly, Kethvar said. We are glad you finally understand. Elena stood up. Her movement was smooth and deliberate. Her team stood with her, creating a line of humans facing the circular table of aliens. The Terran Federation has considered your generous offer, Elena said. Her voice carried clearly through the large room. We have weighed your threats against our principles. We have thought about what it would mean to live under your protection. The council members waited. Some of them were already smiling. Our answer is no. The silence that followed was complete. For a moment, none of the council members seemed to understand what they had heard. Then the room exploded with angry voices. Impossible, shouted the Marlaxian delegate, his scales turning bright red. You cannot refuse. You are just one species. You are making a terrible mistake, Kethavar said, rising from his chair. We have been patient with you, but our patience has limits. Elena waited for the noise to die down. When the room was quiet again, she continued speaking. You call it patience, she said. We call it arrogance. You have spent so long being obeyed that you have forgotten how to earn respect. The Corvani representative clicked his mandibles angrily. You speak of respect? You are children playing with weapons you do not understand. We have ruled the galaxy since before your species learned to make fire. Yes, Elena agreed. You have ruled. You have taken what you wanted and called it peace. You have crushed anyone who disagreed with you and called it wisdom. You have built an empire on fear and called it civilization. How dare you? The Nexari delegate's translator struggled to convey the anger in her subsonic speech. We have brought order to chaos. We have prevented wars. We have saved countless lives. Elena looked at her with calm eyes. You have prevented change. You have stopped growth. You have made the galaxy into a place where only the old and powerful matter. She turned to address the entire council. You offer us protection from dangers that you created. You promise us peace that comes only from surrendering our freedom. You ask us to trust leaders who see us as problems to be solved, rather than people to be respected. Kethavar's blue skin had darkened with rage. You are fools. Do you think your primitive ships can stand against our fleets? Do you think your small worlds can survive our embargo? You will be begging us for mercy within a year. Elena smiled for the first time since the negotiations began. It was not a friendly expression. Speaker Kethavar, she said, you have made the same mistake that powerful people always make. You have confused being feared with being strong. She gestured to her team, and they began moving toward the exit. The Terran Federation chooses to stand alone. We would rather face your anger as free people than live under your protection as slaves. This is madness, the hegemony representative called out. No single species has ever defied the council and survived. Elena paused at the door. Maybe that's because no one has ever really tried. The council members rose from their seats shouting threats and warnings. They told Elena that humanity would be destroyed within months. They promised that human worlds would burn. They swore that this insult would not be forgotten. Elena listened to it all with the same calm expression she had worn throughout the negotiations. When they finished, she spoke one last time. Gentlemen, she said using an old human word that her translator converted into concepts the aliens could understand. You are about to learn why it was a mistake to underestimate humanity. You thought we were weak because we avoided your attention. You thought we were simple because we fought our battles directly. You thought we were isolated because we didn't seek your approval. She looked each council member in the eye. You were wrong about all of it. And soon, the entire galaxy will know just how wrong you were. Elena and her team left the station, within the hour. Their ship undocked smoothly and accelerated away from Harmony's gate. The council members watched it go from the station's observation deck, their faces showing a mixture of anger and disbelief. Let them run, Kethavar said. They will learn their place soon enough. But some of the older council members were not so sure. They had seen Elena's confidence, heard the certainty in her voice. Something about the way she had spoken suggested that she knew something they did not. As the human ship reached the edge of the system, Elena sent a single message back to the station. It was broadcast on all frequencies so that every ship and every station in the area could hear it. To the Galactic Council and all who serve them, her voice said, humanity has chosen its path. We will not bow to your authority. We will not accept your protection. We will not surrender our freedom. If you want to take it from us, you are welcome to try. The message ended with coordinates for a location in human space. When you are ready to negotiate as equals instead of masters and servants, Elena's voice continued, you will find us here. Until then, consider this our declaration of independence. The transmission cut off. Elena's ship jumped to faster than light, speed, and disappeared. On the station, the council members looked at each other uncertainly. They had expected surrender or at least fear. Instead, they had received what sounded like a challenge. Prepare the fleets, Kethavar ordered. If they want to be destroyed, we will accommodate them. But even as he gave the order, he wondered why Elena had seemed so confident. Humans were supposed to be emotional and impulsive. They were not supposed to be capable of the kind of calm planning that Elena had displayed. As news of humanity's refusal spread through the galaxy, the council prepared for what they expected to be a short, easy war. They had no idea that Elena's confidence came from knowledge they did not possess. They did not know about the preparations that had been made, the alliances that had been formed, or the technology that had been developed in secret. They were about to discover that humanity had spent 2 centuries learning from every mistake they had ever made. And the biggest lesson they had learned was that sometimes the best way to win a war was to make sure your enemy never realized they were in one until it was too late. 3 months passed after Elena's dramatic departure from Harmony's Gate. The Galactic Council waited for humanity to come crawling back, begging for mercy. They were confident that economic isolation and the threat of military action would bring the stubborn humans to their senses. Instead, something else began to happen. Something the Council had not expected. It started small. A Marlaxian trade convoy carrying rare metals from the Outer Rim simply vanished between 2 star systems. The ships were found days later, drifting empty in space. Their crews were unharmed but confused, with no memory of the past week. The cargo holds were completely empty. Pirates, declared Fleet Commander Thexani of the Marlaxian Commerce Guild. Some desperate group trying to make trouble. But the stolen cargo never appeared on any black market. The metals seemed to have disappeared completely, as if they had never existed. 2 weeks later, a Zephyrian communication relay that connected 5 systems went silent. Repair teams found the equipment intact but completely reprogrammed. Every message that had passed through it for the past month had been copied and sent to an unknown location. The technicians could not figure out how it had been done without anyone noticing. Impossible, muttered Chief Engineer Veltar as he studied the modified systems. This would require someone to physically access the relay, but our sensors show no unauthorized ships in the area for months. More incidents followed. Supply convoys arrived at their destinations missing essential components, though the crews insisted everything had been normal during transport. Communication networks experienced mysterious failures that lasted just long enough for important messages to be delayed. Mining operations discovered that their equipment had been subtly modified to produce less output. None of these problems were serious enough to cause real damage, but they were constant and unpredictable. The Council's perfect system of control began to develop cracks. Admiral Chen Wei of the Terran Space Navy stood on the bridge of the invisible ship TFS Shadow. Around him, his crew worked at stations that existed only as holographic projections. The ship itself was a masterpiece of human engineering, its hull covered with adaptive camouflage that bent light around it like water. "Report," Chen said to his tactical officer. "Operation Ghostwalker is proceeding as planned, sir," Lieutenant Commander Sarah Kim replied. "We've successfully intercepted 12 supply convoys without being detected. The captured materials are being distributed to our allies in the independent worlds." Chen nodded. The independent worlds were systems that had broken away from Council control over the years. Most were too small or too poor to interest the major powers, but humanity had been quietly building relationships with them for decades. "What about the communication intercepts?" Chen asked. "Intelligence reports that we now have access to approximately 40% of the Council's internal communications," Kim answered. "They still don't realize their networks have been compromised." On the main screen, Chen could see the distant glow of an Ixari patrol fleet. The alien ships moved in perfect formation, searching for threats they could not detect. Their sensors were designed to find conventional ships. They could not track vessels that existed outside normal space-time. Humanity had discovered something the Council races had never imagined. By studying the mathematics of faster-than-light travel, scientists had learned to create pockets of altered space-time. Ships could exist partially outside normal reality, invisible and untouchable. It had taken 50 years of secret research, thousands of scientists working in hidden facilities throughout human space. The Council had dismissed human science as primitive, never realizing that humans approached problems differently than older races. "Sir," came a voice from the communication station. "We're receiving a priority message from Fleet Command." "Put it through," Chen ordered. Admiral Torres appeared on the screen. He was Elena's military advisor, now serving as overall commander of human forces. His expression was serious but confident. "Admiral Chen," Torres said, "Phase 1 is complete. All Council communication networks have been penetrated. Supply lines are disrupted. It's time to begin Phase 2. Chen smiled. Phase 2 would be more dramatic than the subtle actions of the past few months. The Council was about to discover that humanity had not been sitting quietly in their corner of space. "Understood, sir," Chen replied. "What are our targets?" "The hegemony of Voss has been getting aggressive," Torres said. 3 of their core systems have been supporting independence movements. The Council is planning to crush these rebellions with overwhelming force. Chen studied the tactical display that appeared next to Tora's image. The hegemony systems were heavily defended, but their strength was concentrated in fixed positions. Mobile human fleets could strike where they were weak. "We're going to help the rebels?" Chen asked. "We're going to do more than that," Torres replied. "We're going to show the galaxy what happens when people fight for their freedom with proper support." The communication ended. Chen turned to his crew, all of whom had been listening carefully. "You heard the Admiral," he said. "Plot courses for the Voss system. Signal the rest of the fleet to prepare for combat operations." The Shadow and 5 other invisible ships changed direction, heading toward hegemony space. Behind them, other human fleets moved toward different targets. The carefully coordinated campaign was about to begin. Meanwhile, in the offices of the Marlaxian Commerce Guild, Director Zeftos studied reports from across Council space. The pattern of small incidents was becoming impossible to ignore. "Sir," his assistant said, "we've lost contact with 14 more trade convoys in the past week. That brings the total to 47 missing shipments this month." Zeftos clicked, his claws nervously. "Any sign of who's responsible?" "None, sir. It's as if the ships and their cargo simply vanish. The crews are always found later unharmed but with no memory of what happened." "This cannot be coincidence," Zeftos muttered. "Someone is targeting our operations specifically." His assistant hesitated. "Sir, there is one more thing. Several of our former clients have been approached by human traders. They're offering better terms than we ever provided." Zeftos felt a chill run through his body. "Humans? But they're supposed to be isolated. How can they offer anything to anyone?" "I don't know, sir. But the reports are consistent. Humans are promising fair trade agreements, mutual defense pacts, and respect for local sovereignty. Many worlds are finding these offers very attractive." For the first time since the negotiations at Harmony's Gate, Zeftos wondered if the Council had made a mistake. Humans were supposed to be desperate and alone. Instead, they seemed to be building their own network of allies. On the bridge of a Nexari command ship, Fleet Admiral Kethara received similar reports. Her people had the most advanced sensor technology in the Council, but they could not detect whatever was causing the disruptions. "It has to be some kind of new stealth technology," she told her science officer. "No ship can simply become invisible. Our sensors should detect any known method of concealment," the scientist replied. "Whatever they're using is beyond our current understanding." Kethara studied the star charts on her command screen. The missing shipments, the communication failures, the equipment malfunctions. They formed a pattern that covered most of Council space. If someone was responsible for all of it, they would need incredible coordination and resources. "Could the humans be behind this?" she asked. Her science officer made a sound that indicated uncertainty. "Impossible, Admiral. They lack the technology and the organization. Besides, they are contained in their own territory." But Kethara was not so sure. She remembered Elena's confidence during the negotiations. The human ambassador had not acted like someone who was afraid or desperate. She had acted like someone who knew something the Council did not. "Send a message to Fleet Command," Kethara ordered. "Request permission to investigate human space directly." "Admiral?" Her communications officer interrupted. "We're receiving priority signals from the hegemony. They're requesting immediate military assistance." Kethara turned to the tactical display. The hegemony systems were flashing red, indicating active combat. But that was impossible. The independence movements in those systems had only small, lightly armed forces. They could not possibly threaten major hegemony fleets. "What's the situation?" she demanded. "Unknown, Admiral. All we know is that hegemony forces are taking heavy losses. They claim to be under attack by invisible enemies." Kethara stared at the display in growing alarm. Invisible enemies. Missing supplies. Communication failures. Failed sensors. It all added up to one impossible conclusion. Humanity was not hiding in their territory waiting to be crushed. They were already at war with the Council. And so far, they were winning. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike any in their recorded history. Instead of the usual calm discussions about trade agreements and territorial disputes, the Great Chamber buzzed with panic and confusion. Speaker Kethvar looked around the table at his fellow council members. The Zephyrian's normally bright blue skin had faded to a dull gray, a sign of extreme stress in his species. 3 months ago, they had been confident rulers of the galaxy. Now they faced a crisis none of them understood. "Report," Kethvar said. to Fleet Admiral Cathara, who appeared on the main screen from her flagship. "The situation is worse than we initially believed," the Nexari commander said. Her translator struggled to convey the frustration in her subsonic voice. "The hegemony has lost 3 core systems in the past week, not to conventional invasion but to perfectly coordinated independence movements." Around the table, the council members shifted uncomfortably. The hegemony of Voss had been one of the founding members of the council. Their territory was among the most heavily defended in the galaxy. "How is this possible?" demanded the hegemony's representative general, Vossitar. His forearms gestured frantically as he spoke. "My fleets are among the strongest in council space. What force could defeat them so easily?" "That's the problem," Admiral Cathara replied. "We're not facing a conventional force. Enemy ships appear without warning, strike with precision, and vanish before we can respond. Our sensors cannot track them. Our weapons cannot target them." The Marlaxian delegate, Director Zeftos, spoke up. "It's the same with our trade operations. Convoys disappear, cargo is stolen, and we never see who's responsible. It's as if we're fighting ghosts." "Not ghosts," said a new voice. Everyone turned to look at Chief Intelligence Analyst Mordek of the Corvani Collective. His compound eyes reflected the light from dozens of angles as he studied a datapad. "I have been analyzing the patterns of these attacks. They are too coordinated to be random, too precise to be accidents. Someone is conducting a military campaign against us." Kethvar's skin darkened further. "Who?" "The humans are isolated in their territory. They lack the resources for this kind of operation." Mordek clicked his mandibles, a sound that indicated uncertainty. "That is what we believed. But consider the evidence. The attacks began shortly after the humans refused our terms. The methods being used require advanced technology and perfect intelligence about our operations. Most importantly, the independent worlds that are rebelling against hegemony rule are receiving weapons and support from unknown sources." "You're suggesting the humans are behind all of this?" General Vossitar asked. "I am suggesting we underestimated them," Mordek replied. "Badly." The room fell silent. The idea that humanity could be responsible for the chaos spreading through council space seemed impossible. But the evidence was becoming harder to ignore. "Sir," came a voice from one of the communication stations. "We're receiving a priority transmission from the Outer Rim. The Corvani mining colonies are requesting immediate assistance." "What's happening?" Kethvar asked. "The colonies are declaring independence, sir. They claim they have the protection of the Terran Federation and no longer recognize council authority." Another communication station activated. "Priority signal from the Nexari research stations in Sector 7. They report that all their communication relays have been shut down by unknown forces." Then another. "The Marlaxian trade hub at Kepler Station is under attack. Invisible ships are disabling their defense grid." Reports flooded in from across council territory. Independence movements were declaring themselves in systems that had been loyal for centuries. Military installations were being sabotaged by enemies they could not see. Trade routes that had operated safely for thousands of years were becoming war zones. Kethvar stood up, his movements shaky. "This is impossible. How can one species cause so much chaos?" "Because they're not one species anymore," said a familiar voice. Everyone turned to see Elena Vasquez on one of the communication screens. The human ambassador looked exactly as she had 3 months ago. Calm, confident, and completely unafraid. "Ambassador." "Vasquez," Kethvar said, his voice filled with anger. "How dare you intrude on our private session?" Elena smiled. "Your communications are not as private as you think, Speaker. We've been listening to your conversations for weeks. The revelation sent another wave of panic through the chamber. If humans could access their most secure channels, then no council communication was safe." "What do you want?" Kethvar demanded. "I want to offer you the same choice you offered us," Elena replied. "Surrender now and we will be merciful. Continue to resist and face the consequences." General Vostar slammed one of his 4 fists on the table. "You cannot threaten us. We are the Galactic Council. We have ruled space for millennia. And in all that time you never learned the most important lesson," Elena said. "Power that depends on fear and control is not real power at all. It's just an illusion that lasts until someone refuses to believe in it." She gestured off screen and the display changed to show a star map. Red dots marked dozens of systems across council space. "These are the worlds that have declared independence in the past month," Elena explained. "Each one now enjoys the protection of the Terran Federation. Each one has chosen freedom over your version of order." The council members stared at the map in horror. Nearly a quarter of their territory was marked in red. Systems they had controlled for centuries were simply gone. "This is war," Kethavar said. "No," Elena corrected. "War is when two sides fight each other. This is liberation. We're simply helping people choose their own destiny." Admiral Kethara's image flickered as her ship shook from weapons fire. "We're under attack," she shouted. "Multiple unknown vessels are engaging the fleet." The transmission cut to static. Then it returned, showing empty space where the Nexari flagship had been moments before. "Admiral Kethara?" Kethavar called out. "Admiral, respond." A new voice came through the communication system. It was Admiral Chen Wei of the Terran Space Navy. "Admiral Kethara is alive and unharmed," he said. "She and her crew have been taken to a secure location where they will be treated according to the rules of civilized warfare. Her ships, however, are no longer operational." On the main screen, Elena's expression remained calm. "You see, we could have destroyed their fleet completely. Instead, we chose to disable their ships and save their lives. That is the difference between your way and ours." The council chamber erupted in frightened voices. Some members demanded immediate military action. Others suggested negotiation. A few quietly wondered if they should consider surrender. "Silence," Kethavar shouted. When the room was quiet, he turned back to Elena's image. "What are your terms?" "The same terms you offered us," Elena replied. "Dissolve the Galactic Council. Accept oversight from the Terran Federation. Allow us to guide your species toward a more civilized form of government." The cruel irony was not lost on anyone in the room. The humans were offering the Council exactly what the Council had tried to force on humanity. "You cannot expect us to accept such humiliation," General Vossitar said. "Why not?" Elena asked. 3 months ago, you expected us to accept it. You told us it was for our own good. You said we were too young and primitive to govern ourselves." She leaned forward slightly. "Here's what we discovered, General. Age does not guarantee wisdom. Power does not grant the right to rule others, and the strongest military in the galaxy is useless against an enemy that refuses to fight on your terms." The communication ended, leaving the council members alone with their fears. Outside the chamber, reports continued to arrive. More systems were declaring independence. More fleets were being defeated by invisible enemies. The empire they had built over thousands of years was crumbling in a matter of weeks. "What do we do?" asked the Marlaxian delegate. Kethavar looked around the table, at the other council members. For the first time in his long life, he had no answer. They were facing an enemy unlike any they had encountered before. Humans did not fight like other species. They did not want conquest or domination. They wanted something far more dangerous. They wanted to change everything. "We fight," he said finally. "We must fight. If we surrender to them, we lose everything." But even as he spoke the words, Kethavar wondered if they had already lost everything. The humans had spent months preparing for this moment. They knew the Council's weaknesses, their fears, their limitations. Worst of all, they knew that the Council's power was built on a foundation that could crumble if enough people stopped believing in it. And people were stopping. World by world, system by system, the galaxy was choosing freedom over security, hope over fear, and human principles over Council control. The war was not going as anyone had expected, but then again, the humans had never intended to fight a war at all. They were fighting for something much more powerful than victory. They were fighting for the right to choose. 6 months after Elena's dramatic walkout from Harmony's Gate, she returned to the same station. But everything had changed. The massive structure that had once been the symbol of Council power now looked tired and half-empty. Many of the ships that had crowded around it were gone. The corridors that had been designed to impress visitors now felt hollow and abandoned. Elena walked through those same corridors, but this time she was not alone. Representatives from 30 independent worlds accompanied her, along with military officers from species that had never been allowed to speak for themselves under Council rule. The meeting hall looked much smaller than Elena remembered. Only 5 of the original 12 Council seats were occupied. The hegemony of Voss was gone, their territory divided among the worlds that had claimed independence. The Marlaxian Commerce Guild had collapsed when their trade monopolies were broken. The Nexari Collective had retreated to their home systems, their mighty fleets defeated by enemies they still could not see. Speaker Kethavar sat in his familiar chair, but the proud Zephyrian looked like he had aged centuries in just a few months. His once bright blue skin was pale and dull. His eyes, which had shown such confidence during their first meeting, now held only defeat. "Ambassador Vasquez," he said quietly, "you have returned." Elena sat in the same chair she had occupied months ago, but now the balance of power was completely reversed. The 5 remaining council members leaned forward anxiously, while Elena sat back with the calm confidence they had once possessed. "Speaker Kethvar," she replied, "you requested these negotiations. Here we are." The other council members looked at each other nervously. Chief Intelligence Analyst Mordek of the Corvani Collective was the first to speak. "The situation has become difficult," he said, his compound eyes reflecting the light as they moved. "Perhaps we were hasty in our initial assessment of humanity's capabilities." Elena smiled slightly. "You mean you were wrong?" "Yes," Mordek admitted. "We were wrong." It was the first time any council member had ever admitted a mistake in their recorded history. The words seemed to echo in the large chamber. Fleet Admiral Kethara, appearing on a screen from her rebuilt flagship, looked uncomfortable. "Your forces have been effective. We did not expect such tactical sophistication from a young species." "You didn't expect it because you never bothered to really study us," Elena replied. "You saw what you wanted to see. Violent primitives who solved problems with brute force. You missed everything that made us actually dangerous." She gestured to a holographic display that appeared above the table. It showed the current state of the galaxy. Nearly half of what had been Council territory was now marked in green, representing the Terran Federation and its allies. "You assumed we were isolated because we didn't seek your approval," Elena continued. "In reality, we were building relationships with the worlds you ignored. You thought we were weak because we avoided your attention. Actually, we were gathering intelligence about your operations. You believed we were simple because we fought our battles directly, but we were learning to fight smarter, not harder." Director Zeftos of the remaining Marlaxian factions spoke up, his scales flickering between nervous yellow and defeated gray. "What you have accomplished is impressive, but surely we can find some way to coexist. The galaxy is large enough for both our systems of government." "Is it?" Elena asked. 6 months ago, you told us the galaxy was too small for species that didn't follow your rules. You said we had to choose between submission and destruction." She stood up and walked to the large window that showed the stars beyond the station. "You were right about one thing. There isn't room in the galaxy for both systems. The difference is that we're not trying to force anyone to join us." Elena turned back to face the remaining council members. "Every world that has joined the Terran Federation chose to do so freely. Every species that has signed our mutual defense agreements did so because they wanted partnership instead of domination." The display changed to show a series of documents: trade agreements, defense pacts, scientific exchange programs, cultural partnerships. All of them were built on principles the Council had never considered. "We offer equality instead of hierarchy," Elena explained. "We promise cooperation instead of control. We provide protection without demanding submission." General Vostar, representing what remained of the hegemony, made a sound of frustration. "Pretty words. But how do we know your federation will not become just another empire? How do we know you will not abuse your power as the Council did?" Elena walked back to her chair but remained standing. "Because our system is designed to prevent that. No single species controls the Federation. No one world has veto power over the others. Decisions are made by consensus, not by the strongest party." She looked directly at Kethvar. "More importantly, we learned from your mistakes. We saw what happens when power becomes more important than the people it's supposed to serve." The room fell silent. The remaining council members looked at each other, then back at Elena. Finally, Kethvar spoke. "What happens to us? To the worlds that remain loyal to the Council? The same thing that happens to everyone else," Elena replied. "You get to choose your own future." She sat down and placed a datapad on the table. "The Terran Federation would be honored to welcome your species as equal members. You would have the same rights and responsibilities as any other Federation world. Your governments would remain intact. Your cultures would be respected. Your people would be free." Kethvar stared at the datapad. "And if we refuse?" "Then you continue as you are," Elena said simply. "The Federation will not force you to join us. We will not threaten you with economic sanctions or military action. We will not try to destabilize your governments or encourage rebellions in your territory. But," Mordek asked, sensing there was more. But you will be alone, Elena continued. The Federation now includes most of the galaxy's inhabited worlds. We control the major trade routes. We have the largest combined military force. If you choose to remain outside our alliance, you will find yourselves increasingly isolated. It was the same choice the Council had once offered humanity, but with a crucial difference. Elena was not threatening destruction. She was simply describing reality. Admiral Kithara's image flickered as she transmitted from her ship. What guarantees do we have that humanity will not abuse its position in this Federation? Elena smiled. The same guarantee you offered us 6 months ago. None. She leaned forward slightly. The difference is that we've proven ourselves. For 6 months we've had the power to destroy your fleets, conquer your worlds, and rule your people. Instead, we disabled your ships and protected your crews. We supported independence movements but did not occupy the liberated worlds. We could have treated you the way you planned to treat us. But you chose not to, Kethvar said slowly. We chose to be better, Elena confirmed. That is what humanity offers the galaxy. Not perfection, but the promise to always try to be better than we were. The council members talked quietly among themselves for several minutes. Elena waited patiently, watching their faces as they struggled with a decision that would reshape their entire civilization. Finally, Kethvar looked up. If we join this federation of yours, what happens to the council? It dissolves, Elena said. Your species join the federation as equal members. Your expertise in governance and administration would be valuable to our growing alliance. But the days of a small group making decisions for the entire galaxy are over. And what happens to us personally? Director Zeftos asked. Do we face trial for our actions as council members? Elena considered the question carefully. That depends on the individual worlds you governed. The Federation believes in justice, but also in forgiveness. Those who cooperate with the transition and work to repair the damage they caused will be treated fairly. Those who continue to fight for the old system of oppression will face the consequences of their choices. She stood up again, preparing to leave. You have 1 week to decide. After that, the Federation will proceed with or without you. As Elena and her delegation prepared to leave, Kethvar called out one last question. Why? Why show us this mercy? We would have enslaved your people. We would have crushed your independence. Why not simply destroy us and take what you want? Elena paused at the door. When she turned back, her expression was almost sad. Because that's what you would have done, she said. We chose to be better. The week that followed was the longest in Council history. On some worlds, angry crowds demanded that their governments join the Federation immediately. On others, die-hard loyalists insisted that surrender was unthinkable. But in the end, the choice was clear. One by one, the remaining Council species voted to dissolve their ancient alliance and join the Terran Federation. Even Kethvar, the proud speaker who had once dismissed humanity as primitive children, cast his vote for a new future. The Galactic Council held its final session exactly 1 year after Elena had first walked into their chamber. This time, the meeting was brief. With a simple declaration, they officially ended thousands of years of authoritarian rule. As the former council members signed the documents that would make their worlds part of the Federation, Kethvar approached Elena privately.